Daragh, what inspired you to start Magnate?
Yeah, Magnate was inspired out of, I think, giving away my evenings and weekends. When my previous company, as we continued to began to scale, I think lack of control and lack of ability to manage your messaging is at the core of what actually started it. And I'm unable to find something that actually helped me go and solve that. So that was definitely the starting point of me going on this messaging journey.
Absolutely. And for the viewers who aren't familiar, what is Magnate in a nutshell? What can it do, and what do you hope for it to do?
Yeah, so Magnate is a tool that connects with your current messaging platforms, centralizes your messaging, ranks it based on what's most important, and ensures you miss nothing. So you have to mark every message as done, delay, or deleted. So your dashboard's only what you haven't dealt with. And we're going to be the first platform to give full voice control of your inbox, full question and answer, full writing your messages for you, able to remind you. It's going to be like everyone has a personal assistant in their pocket that they can talk to at any time.
Um, there's a lot of SaaS startups nowadays, especially with the advent of AI. How
Mm.
have you found marketing that and differentiating yourself from the competition?
Yeah, it's interesting because the beautiful thing I found about the issue that I'm actually going after is, I think it's because it's my second time going into a business, that I'm more focused on problem marketing than I am solution marketing currently. So like the ads I'm running ads that I'm not even really focused on the product primarily. It's actually a lot of top of funnel ads where it's gathering audiences of people who are receiving a couple thousand messages a week, scattered across platforms. It's just a mess. And the beautiful thing about the problem is that it's a problem most organizations have accepted, that this is the way things are and there's nothing you can do about it. So it makes one of the best problems to go and solve, because ask anyone in the that works and uses any sort of level of messaging, it's usually one of the biggest pains that they have if they receive a lot of messages. So definitely competitive. But again, a lot of what I'm currently doing is like education, because I'm not competing with Gmail and Outlook. I'm allowing people to aggregate control and have a knowledge base with their messaging that's not given to people outside of, I suppose, sales and customer support teams. They're well looked after. They've got their CRMs. You've got lots of tools for that, but the average person receiving lots of messages doesn't. So again, been really interesting, but we're having we're having a lot of senior staff in very large companies that are really interested in the software, because their messaging is so consequential and so important they don't miss anything, that it's actually been easier than one might expect.
Okay, very good.
Mm.
And how does you mentioned you're a second time founder. What benefits does that give you in terms of starting this new venture? What kind of was there any transferable skills, any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like starting business is super intimidating.
Mhm.
I suppose I started my first company when I was 17. I was in Leaving Cert. So we started as just even a brief 30 seconds, started as like a general digital marketing agency, and then niched down to digitalization of medium to large scale enterprises. So we would go into company, work with top level executives slash owners, see the biggest problems, and either build custom tech solutions for them or bring in softwares that are already in the market. And we expanded. We had over 20 staff by the time I exited, all bootstrapped, no raising capital. So this time it's raising capital, it's venture backed. So definitely a lot of differences, a lot of things to learn, but definitely like business is my interest. So like I've been consuming. I'm 24 now. I'm 7 years in business. So there's perks that come with just the nature of hiring people, managing people, expanding to new. I've expanded to the US, did that completely bootstrapped, no capital raise. So definitely not transferable skills, but a business and a venture back startup are two very different things. Like even in year one of Grafton, we did like, and like I was half that year as in my leaving cert. So like we still did like 30 grand in year one. Whereas with this, like we're over a year in and we have no revenue yet. So it is quite different. And even to get someone to pay you 20, 30, 50 quid a month for software, it has to be excellent to go and win in a market. So definitely a lot of new skills in the whole venture space and raising capital. I'm actually going to New York on Tuesday. For a month. I'm going to New York, San Francisco. I'm hopefully going raising my pre-seed round. But again, lots of transferable skills, but also they're two very different domains.
Well, best of luck in your pre-seed round.
Thank you.
You mentioned about the intimidation factor that, I mean, a lot of people can relate to that
in the community. And you said when you were 17 starting off,
Yeah.
how intimidating or how difficult was it for a young entrepreneur? Like when you got into these big meetings, when you're trying to go over to America, did you ever feel like you're out your depth?
Every day for the entirety of the business. um, um, yeah, like, and again, there's so many occasions. It's interesting because after the first couple of years, there was almost a little bit of like poor us. We're not getting a fair rap. I had no facial hairs, fresh face, baby face, going into meetings, trying to act like we had a clue what we were doing. There's one example Eric and I talk about a lot where we prep for this meeting. It was a hotel social media content gig. We're all prepped for it. And he walks in. The first thing the general manager says to us is it something fun you do in your spare time? And this is my full-time job at this point. So, and even expands the US. We went over in 2021 and we went to a load of tech meetups where 80% of people were developers there. And we're like, what? We totally misunderstood what we were doing. We had no clue. It took us a good 2.5 years of consistently back and forth to the US to be able to actually gain our attraction. Now, when I exited last year, over half our revenue come from the US, from New York and Boston companies and some good sized accounts. But yeah, like there's such a steep learning curve. And again, in business, there's so many facets and so much stuff to learn that, yeah, it's extremely intimidating. And yes, you're not like statistically you shouldn't succeed, but again, I think the other beautiful thing about being a young entrepreneur is the naivety of you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
and you can just throw yourself in. Maybe some would argue I'm still doing that today with a brand new venture back business, trying to do this. Did I get lucky the first time? All that sort of stuff. So, but again, I think because we're young, it's actually the stakes are actually reduced. Not it doesn't always feel like that, but that is the case. I think from a factual standpoint.
Yeah, very interesting. And I'm wondering, is there any like specific advice you'd give to maybe say there's a fella doing their leaving cert at the moment, and they want to be an entrepreneur, after school. Is there any kind of advice that you'd give them specifically?
Yeah, if you want to start in leaving cert, strap in. It's going to be a rough year. I started in October of leaving cert, which is already. I was also posting every week on YouTube as well. So I was doing all the editing myself. It was a ridiculously silly time for me. Now, thankfully, I still got nearly 500 points. I still did a good leaving cert, but it was a rough time. Um, no, like the advice I always give for business. It sounds super cliche, but really and truly, you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, you can do whatever, but until you actually start doing the damn thing, it's not going to really materialize for you in any capacity. And I think it's interesting. I think in the school system, there's a lot of like, if you don't do this and you don't get this grade and you don't prep this way, you're going to fail. And I think when you get into the real world, and even especially in entrepreneurship, you're going to have to trial, you're going to have to experiment, you're going to have to make mistakes. And I like the model of like, one more mistake gets you one more closer to get doing the thing right and getting really good at it. So actually, when you look at it, that you're one failure closer to actually doing really well and succeeding, I think it really kind of flips it for you. So I think just start as fast as possible, start experimenting with things. I think ChatGPT in the corner of your screen or on your second monitor is a great tool that you can like trial things and go, did I do that correctly, and get feedback. And even with the nature of the internet and what you guys hear at the podcast is networking can be very beneficial as well. But the number one thing is just start. Because once you start, any content you consume afterward can be really specific. It's not general, and you can get content that's relating to exactly what your pain point is and what you're trying to learn.
Yeah, and that's so true, and you can see that in everything you do. You mentioned a lot about the US. You're going over there, obviously, for your pre-seed round. You went
Yep.
there before with grafting. The Irish ecosystem has been growing definitely over the last couple of years, but do you think there's something it's currently missing?
Yeah, no, I think that startup ecosystems actually, in particular, startup ecosystems actually very good. There's a lot of guardrails and a lot of really good supports. Like I have friends that from different parts of Europe and stuff, and the government does not give anywhere near as much support. Like I'm just after finishing phase two New Frontiers. And again, that's 6 months of getting a salary so you can quit your job and start entrepreneurship. Not many governments would actually give you that. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, is there's a steep learning curve in entrepreneurship and I think an idea that the government helps fund entrepreneurship is absolutely amazing because the venture space is competitive and it's a really tough landscape and there's lots you need to learn. So I actually think Ireland has one of the better startup ecospheres. And then the scale-up ecosphere is actually getting stronger and stronger, because you're seeing a lot of Irish businesses, they actually get acquired as they start to scale up, just because of the nature of the size of the market, I think. But yeah, like considering the size of our country and the population we have, we really do actually punch above our weight. And even the talent pool we have here, like a lot of the larger international companies having like training up talent here in Ireland, and then that being, a pool for us as Irish startups to have people who have been 10 years in Google and risen through the ranks and have that knowledge base is super competitive for us. That allows us definitely to punch above our weight. So again, considering the size of the country, I think we do a really good job. And then you're starting to see kind of more smaller pools of the likes of Eamon Leonard with Baseline, who's now creating his own ecosphere privately, a founder hub himself, and he has his own VC firm there as well. So I actually think Ireland is very strong, and once you kind of work your way into it, it's a lot of support there. And then the Irish abroad are amazing. Like obviously, I'm linking in with a lot of them right now, even in New York and San Fran, and the doors being opened immediately are incredible. So no, I think we do really well considering the size of our country.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's a big community factor with Irish people in general, and so I think that's even elevated when you come into a startup environment.
Mm.
Just want to move you on to, you mentioned how you exited grafting. That's a big thing. I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle. When is the right time? You don't really want to let go. This was your first thing, you started in your leaving cert. How did you know it was time to leave?
Yeah, I think there's no great answer. Like, yeah, as a general takeaway for people, I think it's interesting. You talk about entrepreneurship as a baby, and obviously Eric and I, who started it, we were 17, 18. We started this. We were very, very young, and I think that Eric is excellent. Like, Eric loved that business and he loves it, and it really kind of became his baby more than mine, truthfully.
Mm.
And he really loved that thing. He was excelling and he was doing really well. And I always like anyone who knows me over the years, though, I've always said I'd love to go do a product business. I wanted this venture route. I want to use that as enablement to move abroad. And after a good few years and building a great team, and the business is, over 7 figures in revenue, I was like, okay, I want to go and I want to get back in the trenches. I want to go raise capital. I want to move abroad. So at a certain point, I went, okay, I've learned a lot of lessons here, but I'm eager for a steep learning curve again. I felt like my learning partially plateaued as well. Not to say there's not many more levels. Obviously, every increase in business, there's lots of stages of business, but I always had itchy feet to go do venture. So thankfully, Eric and I were able to come to an agreement where he bought me out of Grafton, and the business has over doubled since last year, since I exited. So he's doing excellently. He's absolutely killing it. But yeah, and then like when I was thinking about pain points, there was a very glaring pain point that I could see, and then the AI space was coming in, obviously advancing technology, and I was like, I think this is a beautiful time to go and actually go and pursue that full, because I genuinely could not find a solution to my problems. I'm like, I think that's generally the textbook thing of like, okay, if you can find that, the audacity to go after the pain point and you have a strong pain point, that's a universally accepted. I think it's a pretty good time to go after it.
Absolutely. And that's, you typically hear that said that that's the best reason to start a venture or to start a business is you see a pain point, you experience it yourself or you see someone else experience it, and that is your why basically to solve that. In terms of you said your co-founder Eric, a lot of people when they're starting businesses and that kind of thing, they will have a co-founder or a co-partner. How important is it, you know, to do your due diligence? I know you've probably known him when you were in school, but when finding that co-founder or co-partner, that right co-partner, how important is it to do that due diligence, and what are the kind of traits you would look out for if you were to find another co-founder?
Yeah, it's essential. It actually it largely makes or breaks companies. Like even if you're talking to VC firms, they'll ask, what's your relationship with your co-founder? What's your equity split? What's the deal? It's actually really essential. And I think like building a business is one, highly risky, statistically unlikely that's going to work. And then it's going to be unbelievably difficult. You're going to only have doors slammed in your face. So it is actually the make or break of most companies really early days, I believe. I actually have a co-founder in this current business, Magnate, Aaron. Now I've been fortunate, I've known Aaron since I was 8 years old. The big one with Eric and I is that because we're so young and we're both kind of I don't know, like Eric would be more technical than I would be. Like we'd both be naturally technical. We'd end up with a very highly technical software development company, but I think we had too many overlapping skills. I think we're both too strong on sales and marketing. Whereas the next venture, I was like, I need someone really high in trust. Aaron was it, but I needed someone extremely technical because again, I can do sales, I can do marketing, I can do finances, but I needed someone who like their interest, what they love doing is technical, you know. And Aaron has a master's in AI. He was a machine learning engineer, like very, very deep in the space, and someone that I really trust a lot. And I think it's really difficult when I hear someone kind of going out to market, let's say someone who leans more maybe on the business side and they go, I'm just shopping around for co-founders. Like I liken that to like I'm shopping around for a wife, but I need to like, you know, snap that up within, you know, a couple week period, you know, very, very, very difficult to do and very statistically unlikely it's going to work, especially because then money gets involved and whatever else is outside pressures, usually from friends and family. But I think it's really important. I think it needs to be very carefully chosen because I even know a business recently, I won't name them, but technical co-founder lost interest, had equity in the business, was invested, he's straight equity. They couldn't come to an agreement on a pre-revenue, basically pre-product business. He wanted more money that can be afforded. Business died, you know, and that's one of many stories. So I think it's super important. I think they should not rush into it. And if it's a venture backed thing, I think it should be like everyone has to spend at least 3 years before they get all their shares unlocked. Like it should be a case where you have to stick it out for the long term because again, things happen, life happens, you know, interests change, financial situations change. It should be people that stick it out the longest that actually end up with the equity. So I think it's something people should be really, really careful about. Because again, they're the person you're going to talk to every single day for years, you know. I think it's really essential.
Yeah, that's great advice. Not even just from the trust perspective, but the different skills. Because how
Yeah.
many of us go into something because we have the same interests, and
Yeah.
then you're clashing heads at every
Totally.
moment. You kept mentioning though that statistic about it was unlikely you would succeed. You know, it's
Yeah.
most businesses fail. Is there
Yeah.
any particular reason you think you made it?
Um, my dad jokes that Grafton Digital had basically 5 companies with the same name that we just happened just to keep cycling through businesses until we found one that worked. Um, I think like in essence, businesses is just having enough money in the bank to keep the lights on and keep going. And then as long as you're relentless enough that you're willing to keep trading off, you know, trading off a more comfortable lifestyle to figure out how to make a business work, you can still keep going. Um, Yeah, I really do think it's just the unwillingness to stop. You know, I just like I'm 7 years in business, of 24. Like every day, no matter how tight things were. And again, I know it's so cliche, but like we did have the Eric and I looked at each other on a Tuesday. Payroll was weekly, which is so silly on agency stuff. We shouldn't be paying people weekly because we get paid monthly/quarterly. And you look at each other on a Tuesday going, we have no money for wages on Thursday. And again, you're having to make calls around, hey, discount on an invoice, get it in faster, all this sort of stuff. But I think I genuinely had an interest in learning business. Again, most people like start with a skill set and then learn business on top of it, whereas my core interest was business from the get-go. And then just an unwillingness to stop, you know? I always felt like I joke with my girlfriend like that I'm like unemployable. That like I actually have no skills that actually someone would actually want to hire me. So I need to make this business thing work. I have no choice, you know? Which is probably not true, but it is a kind of frame I use in my own head. So yeah, I think it is just kind of just a pure unwillingness to give up. And again, as long as you have money to pay your bills and there's money in the company account to keep going, like again, I really enjoy what I get to do every day. Like I said, it's a Monday, and I've been up since 6 working. I really enjoy it, and I really desire to learn the skill of getting really good entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. And in terms of sales and marketing for Magnate, I see you're leveraging, you know, your personal brand, your
Yeah.
LinkedIn. How important is you know, in this day and age as well, leveraging your LinkedIn, building that kind of personal brand, decommoditizing your product. How important is it for you and your strategy with Magnate?
Yeah, it's definitely deeply embedded in the strategy because we're B2B sales slash yeah, it is B2B sales primarily is what we're going after in Magnate, that having myself as a voice of expertise in the space, because I've spent over a year just learning about messaging habits understand the landscape of the space. And I think the other thing as well is that like consistently, like my personal page is so much more reach than the Magnate business page does, and we still post on it, but the reach is at least 10x. So I think it's just leaving attention on the table. And some of the messages of people like silly high up in organizations that message me about content or have gained a wait list or whatever, um, because of what I post. You just never know on LinkedIn who you're reaching. And again, like my demo is a lot of decision makers, high up people in businesses. So I think it's really, really important. I don't think it's a necessity. I think you can absolutely build a business without leveraging your own brand. But because I'm B2B, and I suppose like we decided at Nature where the product placement is that it'd be a very good starting place for me to leverage my, because I've been in business so many years, and leveraging my own LinkedIn page. But it's not a necessity, but I think it definitely makes things easier. Again, it's all educated bets. Is it more, if I'm getting, a couple thousand impressions at least on every post I put up, does it make sense for the brand to give it visibility a couple thousand times a week for free? It's like, yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier that, you're not competing with Outlook or Gmail, but you are facilitating, all of these messages to get stored in one place.
Yeah.
Has anybody been disrupted by that?
Yeah. Not to my knowledge. Like again, it's interesting because there's a couple different players that are tangential in the space. There's Fixer AI, which have been really hot recently. They'd be similar-ish because they just do email. Superhuman. There's like Martin, which has Jarvis and stuff. Like there's a few players in the space, but again, we're still very early days. And again, like there's a couple billion people a day that send messages. Like the market is absolutely ginormous. Like there's so much space. Like even in my space currently, I'm not concerned about competitors that are like in the space because it is so large. All of us can build really big businesses in this space. And thankfully, it's actually not as congested as people might actually think it is. Um, like there's really big hurdles getting in. There's the data security side, getting encryption and compliance. Like there's some nice hurdles, which again, I remember talking to a guy who started an alcohol brand, and I'm like, geez, the barriers that are crazy. But he's like, yeah, but most people won't jump over them. So it's actually, once you get over here, really high likelihood of getting acquired. Actually, you can get shelf space decently easy in Ireland to start with. Like though, like the guys I know are in a huge retail brand here in Ireland, and they're quite a small business, and that was really accelerated. So the more barriers, the better. And in messaging, like the trust piece is probably one of the biggest things for us. So we've just relentlessly focused on that from day one. So yeah, no disgruntled people yet. And I've already I already know I've already talked to some of the early investors in Fixer. I know lots of people that know the owner, Rahul, or ex-owner. He just sold the company a couple of weeks ago. Rahul, I was at drinks one time. One of the guys was like, "Hey, do you want to ring him right now?" I'm like, "No, please. I'm still too early. I don't want to talk to him yet." But again, we will cross paths at some point. I know lots of people that know him, but again, everyone can do well here. So it's not like we're like two barbershops in the corner of Galway City here. It's like we can all do
Yeah.
really well.
That's so cool, there. And when you go over to the US, how much will you focus on the total addressable market when you're pitching to investors, and what will be your overall strategy when you're
Yeah,
over there?
it's funny. In my side, I actually don't really lean into total addressable market because it's just a ridiculously big number behind me of like, hey, there's like 2 billion people a day that use Gmail and Outlook, and it's like
Yeah,
the beautiful thing about my thing is like Microsoft did a white paper last year, and people like the average, which means that the people I'm going after are in the top percentile. They spend on average 15 hours a week in Teams and Outlook. The average person. Um, so when I put up that stat, and this is according to Microsoft across 35,000 people across 35 countries, it's like, come on now. Like, and like, what are we doing here? We're trying to speed up reading emails and messages. We're trying to speed up writing messages, and we're trying to speed up finding things. And then everything else is just built around that as core. Like, that's all I'm doing. And then obviously having really good UI and good flow and fast everything. And again, that's all technically doable. And the data security side, then we've been taking it from day one. So, like, the main thing is actually more just finding investors that believe in the in the pain point, it can really open doors quite quickly because, again, because we're so B2B and we're so universally sellable, it's like, okay, money's one thing, fine. But I'm really looking at strategic investors, like talking to people in the data security space, talking to people who have scaled up tech companies that pay for Fixer, Superhuman, all that sort of stuff, that have already put their money where their mouth is and pay for the solution similar-ish to this. So that when I look at my cap table as like, and we're at full product. Obviously, we're at like V1 now. We're working on AI voice control at the moment, full AI chat. We'll release that. That should get a pop. That they can pick up the phone and we can open doors very quickly because this can get to enterprise quite quickly. So, like even our mentor and like chairman of this company, Gareth Flower, he's based in New York. He's a company called Wayleader. He's clients like Netflix, Uber, L'Oreal, OpenAI. Like he's a perfectly aligned. He's Irish American, born in Longford, went over to New York 4 years ago, sells to some of the biggest companies on the planet, and has raised millions of dollars over there. So he's aligned with this as well. So again, everything has to be strategic and really get on board and really enable this business because I think it's a no-brainer. Personally, I think it's just, in my personal opinion, but I just need people that can help just open doors faster. Because again, like we've seen the speed of Fixer. Fixer's gotten to from what they said publicly, in the first 2 years of business, they're going to hit 4 million MRR in the first 2 years in business. Like the pressure in the market's insane. So I just need people to help me enable to get there faster.
Yeah. And when you get over to the US, I know a lot of young entrepreneurs particularly struggle with pitching that idea, especially when
Yeah.
you're in the development phase and you're almost trying to sell a dream or the hope
Yeah.
or the promise sometimes. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. Really interesting one. I'd be a real, I would class myself as a facts and logic dude, but um raising money is very much, it's a story. It's the story of now and the story of 10 years time, especially pre-seed. And any of the best pre-seed investors I've talked to, they actually, it is the truth. Like any of the people maybe that aren't as good in the space, they want to see the 5 year projections of a product never existed. I was talking to a fund in London and they were like, I don't care about what month 6 you project you're gonna do in revenue. They're like, I care about the team, I care about that the problem's huge. And I agree that I want to see that you're directionally correct, that you're roughly heading the right direction. And are you the guys gonna go figure it out? So it's absolutely huge, and the story is absolutely essential. I remember early days I was doing a conversation with an angel, and we were just like spitting back and forth. And he goes, "All right, come on, tell me your founder story." Like, and he prompted me. Like, I should have been on the ball more with that. And there's definitely a bit of a learning for me in the sense that, okay, then that's essential. I need to open with that, and people buy into stories. So yeah, pitching really important. Have a congruent story and make sure, like, the other thing as well is that I don't think people fully understand the level of depth you need to think about things and really go into to really get it. Like having really good understanding of the space, being like an industry expert is absolutely essential. That doesn't mean that if you're building something messaging, that you had to have a messaging business before this. But it's just understanding at every stage, like how are you getting your first 100 customers? What's the problem? What's the landscape? Why have these companies not succeeded? How are you getting your first 1,000 customers? Why are you going to that market? What do you need the money for? And having really good answers across the board, because you will get grilled as you go along. So I think the big one that comes back to something we talked about at the start of this podcast is that you need to walk into every conversation, obviously prepped. But every time you get something where you can't answer, you don't think you gave a good answer, I always write it down, go prep it afterwards. You can get caught once, with a bad answer, or maybe something that's not very strong, but do not get caught twice. Because again, you will get caught several times. So, and again, even like something like New Frontiers, like they do have people just grilling you from every side. It does really help you, enable you to actually like have really good answers, talk to experts in the space. So pitching is absolutely essential. The story is really essential, and ensuring that you show that you're safe hands to go and actually go pull this off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned having a mentor
Yeah.
just a second ago. How important is having a mentor for you? And should every person starting a business have a mentor? Is it necessary?
Yeah, I think it really helps. So what I did was when I was 18, 19, I was I was struggling to I was struggling to be able to meet up with entrepreneurs for coffees. They kept saying no. or just not answering or whatever. So what I did was I started a podcast where I just interview business owners, and it helped, maybe a similar format to what you guys are doing, and it actually helps get people on the phone way more likely than they would if you just cold DM them looking for a Zoom or a coffee. So I actually met Garrett Flower through that, but I interviewed like Gary Fox, Entrepreneur Experiment, interviewed Devin Hughes at Buy Me, and lots of other business owners. And Garrett just happened to come down to our offices, and after the podcast, he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a bit of a whiteboard session on your business?" We're like, "Yeah, this guy's 10 years more in business than us, and has done lots of cool stuff. He's already had a couple exits. Yeah, let's do it." And he tore our business to shreds and got on the whiteboard, and he left, and Eric and I spent like 3 hours walking loops that evening, discussing everything and like what do we do and whatever else. And it started very off, very informally, and then we formalized it by actually having him as someone that actually we had. And he's been a mentor of mine for over 4 years now. And again, there's other people now that I'd ring about specific things and over time. But I think the biggest thing that Garrett actually gave us was he really broke the glass ceiling of what we thought was possible. The guy really is a visionary in the sense of the word. Like he really believes, and it's no wonder that he spent over a 3-year period. He's able to go to the US and get Fortune 100 companies because he just believes. He's like, why can't I do that? And just being around a dude like that and him pushing me from a very young age has definitely enabled me to really open up my mind of what we think is possible, and had huge impact on Eric and I. That plus many other upsides as well. So I do think so. But I just think it's ensuring that it's getting someone that's aligned with you, and someone who it's very clear of the skills that they can bring to the table that you want to benefit from. I do see a lot of people that just pay just general business consultants, and I think it's better to look at someone. And again, I got lucky with Gareth. Again, he can end up unlucky in this, but I think looking at it very blatantly of like, what has this person done that you want to do? Garrett had gone the tech route, gone to the US, raised money, sold to one of the biggest companies on the planet. Plus, his mindset was like nothing he'd ever met before. So every time I was around him, I learned so much. So I think it's really important. I think it can be hugely impactful. It has been for me, but it wasn't something I sought out. I just generally want to build my network because maybe we'll like be able to sell a website or something. Like there was no master plan in it, but it happened that Garrett kind of stuck around, and we're now, he's now involved in Magnate now, and I think he's been a mentor and friend for over 4 years now.
Yeah, and that's such a great story, and it also leads into that quote where it's like, "Don't take advice off somebody you don't want to be like."
Yeah.
But you mentioned about making mistakes in pitching, not to do it
Yeah.
twice. Your
Yeah.
mentor, he came in, he broke the glass ceiling on you, helped you really see things.
Hmm.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned in business?
Yeah, it's a good one. I really think that for most people, that your imagination is actually the glass ceiling and how big your business can be. I really feel like most people actually, it's actually their own mind that stops them from going really big. And I think that once you can put to the side that, oh, I couldn't do that, or I'm not the guy to go build that, or why can't you build a business going to be huge? Because again, the one we talked about, the guy who has a restaurant around the corner here is working, if not maybe even harder than I am. We're probably both putting in really long hours. But my thing is possibility of affecting like hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And then obviously the size of the business you can build off of that is absolutely ginormous. So, and that's just a decision, and that was completely, in your own mind. Or even like, hey, I'm going to start a business for messaging just in Ireland because I'm unwilling to get in a plane and go abroad. That's completely my own decision. So I think really that your imagination and what you're willing to go and ask for is actually the limit of what you can actually get. Um, like I've seen, one of my closest friends has started a business, and within 18 months they're doing over 10 million euro a year in business, like in actual ARR. Like, who, he's in his 20s. He's no, like on paper, he's no right to do that, but he just hit a market perfectly, and he put his hand up and go, I'm going to go try and solve that problem. So, it really, really is insane. And yeah, I think that would be one of my biggest lessons.
That's seriously impressive.
Yeah.
And do you think like anybody can? Is there anything someone can do to specifically train that muscle of belief? Breaking that glass ceiling. What do you think?
Yeah. I definitely think, some people are more pessimistic than others. I definitely think everyone has a different starting point on where you are with that. But I think it's absolutely a muscle, like that same guy I said just did 10 million, is doing 10 million euros ARR in the first 18 months of business, is the same guy that when I said, oh, maybe one day we can make 300 grand a year in personal income, said I'm an absolute lunatic and said that that's never going to happen. So like, and that's about a 3 year period in difference in mindset for maybe 4 years. So it's absolutely trainable. I think it's just pure exposure. And I think, well, one thing that, like, I suppose through the business journey of Grafton and being a service provider is really good is that you get to see insights of lots of businesses. You get to see, and being a younger person, I think people are more open with information and they're a little bit faster to tell you maybe what to do in a revenue, what went well, what didn't go well. And as we expand to bigger and bigger businesses and dealing with higher and higher net worth individuals, you just go like, wow, this thing is just completely at the helm of what you think is being able to pull off. So I think being around it and seeing it up close is definitely the fastest way probably to break that. I think it's hard to read it in books and listen to podcasts and that to be the way that you understand it because it just seems too far away. So I think just trying to be around people in business and around people that are absolutely killing it. And you go, they speak just like me. They're just having more years in business, or they have this skill set, or they hit this market right. But it's doable. And but yeah, definitely for us, it was definitely exposure and just seeing person after person after person after person going, well, this person's doing over 100 million euros a year in revenue. You're like, what? Like, what? This happened to be doing this 15, 20 years. It's crazy stuff. So yeah, no, I think it's just pure exposure.
Yeah. And I think it's about, breaking out of that fish tank, getting into the sea. It's like you can't outgrow your environment. So just get into a bigger environment. But
Yeah.
to pull it back to Magnate, and you talk about breaking ceilings, what's the 5-year plan for Magnate?
Yeah. I would really I really think Magna has the potential to be a ginormous company. And I think the beautiful thing, and we're talking about bets here, and this is something I would be saying when I'm pitching, it's like, you know, people aren't going to stop communicating, no matter how much is automated, no matter how much workflow. Like, we probably won't be talking about the same things we are talking about now because things will be a lot more automated. But there's two bets. One is that people are not going to stop communicating. And, you know, two, it's a case that, like, no matter what happens, people will have to, have habits around messaging. And I'm not betting on a platform, I'm betting on an overall habit of human beings. So I would love Magnate to be one of the top messaging control centers for people. Like, we're working with the University of Galway looking at gamification. We're working with the Department of Psychology and Computer Science to make this the most customizable experience that people can build it how they want. Because the thing that's been broken in messaging for so long is that you've had to conform to every different platform. There's no way to control, there's no way to customize it. No matter how many Zapier connections you throw in, it's just not really a way that you can actually build it properly. So I would want Magnate to be the gold standard for people, that it allows them to build their messaging world how they want it and be the leader in automation and messaging globally, really. I think in 5 years, you can build a pretty big company. So yeah, I really want this to be a really premium, really high-end business.
Daragh, thanks so much for coming on. It's been an absolute jam-packed episode. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. And actually, before we finish, where can people, um, find you? Where can people, look at your journey and the development of Magnate?
Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, Daragh Jordan. If people are interested in Magnate, we'll be releasing publicly in the next few weeks. So you can go to magnatesoftware.com and you can join the waitlist there. And then I suppose Eric and we do a weekly podcast called Built from Scratch, where we just shoot the shit in business and we just talk about what's going on in our week and what we've learned and what we're doing. Because I feel like most business content is people just talking about the highs and talking about all the good stuff, because we forget about the painful bits. But we talk week over week about what's going on, good things and bad things, what we're learning, because we hope that could add some value to people as well, so you can follow along there, built from scratch.
Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
See
lads.
ya.
Appreciate your time.